Hi, everybody. Hello, Eighth and Existential Gamer. Welcome to our little tiny Friday stream. Hello, I'm Lisa, your host, Tess, with the most Tess. Cool specs. Thanks. I know there's a lot of glare. I am just wearing glasses because I just could not be arsed to put on contacts today. I don't know why, but the last couple days I've just been feeling like a very irritable, which is extremely rare for me. Like I think I get irritable like once every 4 years or something. Um so I don't know, man. I'm like feeling like that. I don't know if it's like hormones, like what's going on. I've been going to therapy for like a month and a half. I told my therapist yesterday I'm so frustrated. I feel like I have made no progress. The therapy is so different from everything I've tried before. And I don't know if it's like her methods or whatever. I like her as a person. She seems really cool. I like trying new things. I'm kind of game for trying anything, and it's a very abstract kind of touchy feely stuff that I'm just yeah. Anyways, that is neither here nor there. Existential says, I've heard the pollen is super bad. Do allergies cause irritability? That's a really good question. Yeah, because like little things are cropping up in my life where like things are kind of just like little things going wrong here and there. And normally I'm so chill about stuff like that. And I'm able to see the big picture and I really don't care. And now it's like every little thing that comes along, I'm like, is just annoying me so bad and I can't get past it. The therapist, she said, folks who get periods. Because I was like, well, I was saying to her, about this irritability. I was like, man, I feel so crazy. And I was like, I have PMDD and I was having S word thoughts and stuff, which is like, I know that's not real, but, you know, she's like, you don't have a plan, do you? And I was like, no, dude, I think it's just my period. And she goes, oh, yes, for folks who get periods. And I was just like, you don't need to use that language with me. Just say women. Anyways, um, I popped open the New York Times this morning, and I love when this happens, but there was an article that's right up our alley for the stream about women mountaineers. Now, alpine mountaineering is something that interests me about this much. I like climbing. I like what's called trad or traditional climbing. There's a joke in the climbing world about trad wives. They are the the women who stay home while the men go out climbing, but a little bit different than the trad wives we're used to, because trad is a type of climbing, and it's my favorite type of climbing. Haven't done it in a while. Mostly just been gym bouldering for the last year or so. But trad climbing is very linked to alpine climbing. They're kind of in the same realm ish. And yeah, Melanie Hamlet has talked about how climber men are a special breed of a-hole. Um, yeah, we read an article about an abusive man climber who got away with a lot of his nasty stuff and even criminal stuff because he was so respected as a climber. And climbing has this sort of macho uh, attitude or whatever, where women are kind of just seen as on the fringe and everything centered around men. And reading that article was so triggering to me, and it brought up a lot of experiences that I've had that, do you know this feeling of like when a man is really doing something creepy, but you just have to kind of politely laugh it off because there's really nothing else to do in that situation? And I think we do that so much that it just becomes it's layered up like gunk inside of us, that uh having to deal with men in this specific way throughout our lives and just always I wrote down just a couple notes for today, but I wrote down accommodation. Just that word is we're always having to accommodate that men's sort of creepiness and where we're you know just have to politely kind of laugh things off. And I think there's a little bit about that in this article. I did skim it. And so maybe I'll just stop rambling and get into the article. Um, Creeps are usually adept at not making it super obvious, skirting that line where you look crazy if you say anything. Definitely. Outdoor sports community, rafting, hiking, etc. Yeah, I don't think it's any man. Oh, somebody asked me to talk about bear versus man. I actually made a voice note to myself because I kind of wanted to make a video about that. And I don't know if the moment has passed because I'm just going to lower this little because I always having to like adjust. Uh, but anyways, I, I, I don't know if the moments have has passed to talk about bear versus man, but I have a few feelings about it. It's like, um, would it be, like, ultra spicy to say I'd rather encounter a man? I think there's you know, this idea, it's kinda overblown, actually, the risk that, stranger men pose to us, and I did do a, poll on my channel, "Has a stranger man ever touched you in public?" And I think it was, like, overwhelmingly, you know, people answered yes, and it's happened to me. I've been assaulted by a stranger man, sexually assaulted by a stranger man in public, and yet I still don't I think that it's about living in fear, right? The statistical likelihood that anything seriously bad is gonna happen to you, and even just being touched can absolutely be traumatic, and it was for me for sure. And it's something I still deal with, but do you wanna, like, live your life in fear where you are always altering, you know, the way you act and what you do, and you coming into this closed little bubble of fear? Um I think that part of it is almost, like, counterproductive. I think there's a really helpful aspect of it, like, where women are it's almost like a little mini Me Too movement where women are coming forward, talking about some experiences, which I think could be very cathartic. I think it can be very, consciousness raising, to talk about these experiences that we've had, and maybe I will talk about some of the experiences I've had in climbing as we go through this article. But I also think it can make it seem like the risk is a lot higher than it is, and it will prevent you from living your life and doing the things you wanna do, and in which case it's not healthy. It's really not healthy. Um, Existential says, "I'd rather encounter the man unless he looked sketchy." It depends, but I understand why women said bear. I mean, my other experiences, bears are pretty gentle and docile, and they'll run away from you, at least black bears are that way. So, I feel kind of almost ambivalent towards who I encounter. I Yeah, um, there was something else I wanted to say about it. Perhaps I will make a short video about that, but yeah, I'd like to get into the article now. Welcome to anyone who's here. The way this works, if you happen to be new here, we read an article, we stop and discuss it as we go. So please do feel free to comment on the text of the article as we go, and I will as well, and I'll stop and read your comments. This is a discussion. It's for us to all learn together. Yeah, so I mentioned earlier, I'm a climber, obviously. I'm a trad climber, gym boulderer, but I have not done this style of high altitude alpine mountaineering that they're talking about in the article, and I'm not super interested in that style of climbing either. If you've ever seen those photos of people up on Mount Everest and the huge lines and the mess and the trash and the dead bodies and stuff, I'm like, I'm good. I'm good. I have done some high altitude hiking. I'm not really interested in going much above 14,000 feet or something like that. But more power to the women who do it, I guess. But anyways, yeah, let's see. Let's see what we got here. The article is from today, hot off the presses. It's called "For Women Climbers, Dangers Go Beyond Avalanches and Storms." So I love that the New York Times is highlighting this topic. This is like, of all the news they could choose to report on, they're publishing an article about harassment of women in climbing. Women are increasingly reporting sexual harassment and abuse in the sport, including accusations against the renowned climber Nirmal Purja. Um, Existential says, I summited Mount Washington and almost fainted from lack of oxygen. Did you hike up Mount Washington? I would love to do that sometime. People die up there in July from exposure. I think that's so crazy. The weather is totally wild up there. Mount Washington's like 6,800 feet, though, so you shouldn't really be having too much of an issue with the altitude up there. Although, the first time I went to Colorado or Colorado, I uh, I felt it the first day. We were only at 5,000 feet, and I felt it. So you can feel it if you're used to if you're used to being at sea level. More and more women are taking up high altitude mountaineering, though the sport is still dominated by men. And yeah, I would say definitely alpine climbing. If you look at different types of climbing, I frequently post about this, but often I'm like the only woman at the climbing gym, or maybe there'll be a couple of others, or I'll be in a section of the gym and there'll be 20 guys and I'll be the only woman in that on that section of wall or whatever. So it's even gym climbing, which is probably the most equal of types of climbing as far as being male female, is still so heavily male dominated. And then the, I would say gym climbing and alpine climbing are two kind of ends of the climbing spectrum where it just keeps getting more and more male dominated. Probably alpine climbing is like the most. And if you're not sure what alpine climbing is it's hiking up these high mountains where it's kind of like hiking. Maybe you're using ice axes and crampons and snow and that kind of stuff. So that's what we're talking about today. Mountaineering is another word for it. In a memoir published in December, the professional mountaineer and former Miss Finland, Lotta Hintsa, briefly described an upsetting incident with a very famous male climber whom she didn't name. Women are so often afraid to name these men, right? During a March 2023 business discussion in the man's hotel suite in Kathmandu, Nepal, he kissed Lotta completely without warning. Miss Hinsa said, Miss Hinsa and her co-author wrote in the Finnish language book, The Mountains of My Life, too. The situation was absurd, unreal, and unpleasant, but in interviews with the New York Times, Ms. Hinsa said her experience was more disturbing than she had described in the book. And her story highlights a concern that women in the climbing world are starting to talk about more openly. So we love this. We love that women are coming out to talk about their experiences. I uh I was doing the majority of my climbing in the mid 2010s. And I had quite a few creepy experiences that, at the time it was like definitely laughed them off as being kind of like just like, oh, that's just goofy thing. For example, I went climbing with this guy who was very well known, older guy, really like a nice guy too, like very good climber, long climbing history. And I was telling him like I had this back shoulder pain, which I still have 10 years later. And he was like, "Let me massage you," And I was thinking, "Oh, Well, that's nice. I've had, like, professional massage, I mean, I've had massage a lot, and I don't see massage as, like, a sexual thing necessarily, but then he was like, "Oh, well, that will you massage me now?" And, I mean, it was just, like, in retrospect, I was like, I get a very skeevy feeling about that. And then the same guy, I was a dirtbag climber. I was up hard up for cash, and he suggested as a way to make money that I should become a stripper at the local strip club. So, that was a creepy experience. Um, I had another experience with another climber friend who again was like a really nice guy, and on some levels, like, I really enjoyed his company. Um, but, like, our friendship went to the place where, like, he was just texting me that he was, like, really into, like, leather and, like, ropes and stuff, and he, like, wanted he was just, like, became the object of his interest in that way, and I'm like, "I'm not into that, okay?" So, yeah, like, I thought we were friends. That happens a lot with guys. It's like, I thought this relationship was something else. I thought we were just, like, friends. Like, get out of here with that, you know what I mean? So, but again, these are the things that we kind of laugh off or shrug off, and we maybe we don't think to warn other women about these men or whatever, and then they're able to kind of do these really creepy things with impunity, and it's like, "Oh, well, it's just making a woman uncomfortable. It's not illegal, to tell a woman you wanna tie her up or whatever. It's not, illegal to, ask a woman if she wants to a massage and y you know, if she wants to massage you or whatever." It's just like, um, yeah, I don't know. It's more just like heebie-jeebie type stuff, but, like, you know, he just kissed her without warning? What the frick, dude? That's, like, obviously crossing, like, a massive line, You should gotta at least ask. Ms. Hinsa said the man was Nirmal Purja, whose successful 2019 quest to climb all 14 of the world's 8,000-meter peaks in record time was chronicled in a popular Netflix documentary. Okay, so I haven't seen that. I don't have Netflix anymore. But, she said he led her to the oh my god, what? Can I read this on YouTube? She said he led her to the bedroom, pulled off her shirt, trekking shorts, and underwear, and tried to remove her bra. She said she repeatedly told him no and offered excuses to get him to stop without agitating him. The episode ended with him doing that next to her, she said. Oh my gosh. I just needed to get out of this and pretend it never happened. Miss Hitza, 35, recalled thinking at the time. So, yeah, that's so often the reaction of women in these situations is like, let me just survive this. I had another experience that's very kind of embarrassing to talk about, but I was I was hanging out with a climber guy, climbing partner, and, um, I I guess I was, like, gonna stay over at his house, and, cause I was far away from where I lived, and it was late, but we were, like, just friends, just climbing partners, right? So he goes, "Do you wanna sleep in my guest room, or do you wanna sleep in" I'm, like, blushing, this story is so embarrassing. "Do you wanna sleep in my bed with me and the dog?" And so I'm imagining that I'm gonna sleep in bed with this guy with, like, the dog in between us, and, like, totally platonic. I didn't even think I'm, like, so naive, and I was probably, like, 32 at the time or something. And, and then I just did not realize, like, I was like, "Sure, I'll sleep with you and the dog." I'm just thinking, like, this is like sleeping in bed with my sister or something. I did not realize, like, how he was gonna interpret that, and then I was just in a very awkward position, and it was the same thing. I was like, "I just need to survive this until the morning and get out of there," and pretend it never happened. But, whatever. This is just like men definitely take advantage of women being naive and whatever. It happens. Like, I don't even blame myself for that, right? I was just naive. I don't know. So, here she is. Wow. Beautiful lady. Lotta Hintsa, a Finnish mountaineer, described a troubling experience with the renowned climber and guide Nirmal Purja. Through his lawyer, Mr. Purja declined requests for an interview. The lawyer, Philip Kelly, said in a written statement that Mr. Purja, I hope I'm saying that right. I have no idea. Purja, unequivocally denies the allegations of wrongdoing. These allegations are false and defamatory. What the question is, like, with all of these, when women come forward with stories and allegations and stuff, especially when they name the man, right? What do they have to benefit from that? These stories are really humiliating to tell. They're very embarrassing. Um, they're traumatic to relive this stuff. And I think, women come forward because they want to maybe help other women in some way, like either avoid a similar situation or feel that they're not alone. Like, that's definitely some of my reasons for sharing the things that I share. Of like, it's also can be very cathartic and can be part of the healing process to like acknowledge that something bad did happen to you. It's okay to be a victim of things. Some people will say, "Oh, you should never admit to being a victim of anything." But um oh, existential. I have an embarrassing story. A coworker friend helped me move. He purposely drank too much. We had to share a bed because I had no couch. I spent literally the entire night smacking his hand off me. That's horrible. And again, it's like, why do we feel embarrassed by these things that it's like we didn't do anything wrong, you know? It's so obvious, but then I think if you don't have like malicious intentions yourself, you're not gonna see that someone else would either, you know what I mean? Or not even, I don't know if malicious is the right word, but, like, if that's not on your mind, maybe you're just not gonna you're not it's not on your mind, so you're not gonna think it's on the other person's mind either. I don't know. As high altitude mountaineering has gained popularity, women have become increasingly visible and formidable in a sport still largely dominated by men. Statistics from Mount Everest speak to the trend. Last year, 65 women reached the summit, about 10% of the climbers who summited, up from 45 in 2013 and just 10 in 2003, according to the Himalayan database. So it's still like a tiny, tiny percent. I mean, it's crazy 650 people are summiting Mount Everest in 1 year. That's insane because the weather windows are so small to get up there. That's why you see those insane lines. To me, that it just seems so unpleasant. But in recent years, members of the broader climbing community have acknowledged that the sport comes with unseen risks, especially for women. More and more women in the sport, which includes everything from indoor rock climbing to ascending snowy peaks, are coming forward to talk about moments they've described as unsettling or worse. In 2019, a group of professional female rock climbers started an Instagram account about the ridiculous and inappropriate messages, photos, and solicitations we receive in our DMs. One of the women said in a social media post, "That is every woman and not just limited to climbing, certainly. That's every every woman hobby, the demand or yeah, the demand of men, the volume of men out there who are willing to pounce on women is just on it's like shocking always." The account, whose creator said it was later shut down by Instagram, shared screenshots of harassing messages sent to women in the sport. In February, a 39-year-old climber named Charles Barrett was convicted of 3 counts of sexual abuse for repeatedly assaulting a woman who was visiting Yosemite National Park for a weekend hiking trip in 2016. So that was the article that we read couple of months ago about Charles Barrett that's still up in my live streams. The U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of California said in a statement that Mr. Barrett had used his renown and physical presence as a rock climber to lure and intimidate victims who were part of the rock climbing community. And in interviews with the Times, Ms. Hinsa and another woman, a former client of Mr. Purja's high altitude guiding company, described experiences in recent years in which he kissed them without consent, made aggressive advances, or touched them sexually against their wishes. They said they felt powerless and wary of angering Mr. Purja. So I think in order for the New York Times to publish this, they have to reasonably believe that these things are true because otherwise they really would be subject to, you know, like a libel lawsuit or something for publishing these things about this guy. So that seems, just that alone adds some credibility to this, right? Dr. April Leonardo described Mr. Purja as coming into her tent uninvited during an expedition to K2. So, how stressful it would be on one of these climbing exhibitions and then to, hey, useless strawberry, haven't seen your face in a while. Um, how stressful it would be to be on one of these high altitude mountaineering expeditions and then you want to feel that any of your climbing partners, male or female, are competent. They are not going to intentionally or accidentally K word you. Um, that they're a comrade, they're that you should have like a real trust and camaraderie. Trust is just hands down the most important thing in climbing is a trust on a personal level. The person is not going to harm you on the mountain or off the mountain, that you can trust them, you know, with your life. And this is so threatening to kind of encroach on a woman's space like that. I didn't know what to do, recalled Dr. April Leonardo, a family physician from Quincy, California. She said Mr. Purja repeatedly grabbed, kissed, and propositioned her during an expedition to K2, the world's second tallest mountain. I'm on this crazy climb. He's my guide. I don't want to do anything to put myself in jeopardy. I can't imagine that. I have used a climbing guide before, and who, like who is nothing but totally professional. I mean, when you hire a climbing guide, it's like hiring someone to come into your house and do work. They're you're their boss. uh, they're working for you. They're there to make you comfortable and happy. It costs a fortune to climb with a guide, and it should just be all about your having a great experience. That's literally their job. So this is such a violation of that. Unbelievable. Repeatedly grabbed, kissed, and propositioned her. I mean, I would leave, I would sue him. I how would this is a very dangerous climb, and you're gonna trust this guy, you know, to belay you or fix your ropes or whatever they do up there on K2, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, it's so much more than you risking your life just doing the climb. The statement from Mr. Purge's lawyer also unequivocally denied Dr. Leonardo's allegations, but where there are multiple allegations from different women, they did not coordinate. Different women from all over the world are all saying the same things about this guy. Soon after the encounters, the women described having Soon after the encounters the women described having with Mr. Purja, they shared their stories with friends and relatives and sent them text messages about their experiences. The Times reviewed the text messages and confirmed the conversations with the other people. The outdoor recreation world has started to address sexual abuse and harassment, though haltingly. In response to the Me Too movement, members of the US climbing community created an initiative in 2018 called Safe Outside to study the scope of the problem in the sport. The organizers surveyed more than 5,000 climbers from over 60 countries and found that 47% of women and 16% of men said they had been subjected to unwanted sexual behavior while climbing. So I am in that 47%, although the experience I had was pretty mild. It shouldn't be happening at all, mild or severe. This is a huge amount. This is half of women. So if you get into climbing and you get into climbing with men, there's a 50% chance that you're going to have unwanted sexual attention, harassment, assaults, touching, whatever it is. It's crazy. Yes, like Adrian said, you reject him and the fear of retaliation has so much more potential consequences. Oops, the rope failed. Another experience I had, and I'm not sure, I may have talked about this on stream before. I don't know. I've definitely told a few people this story, but uh, I had a serious boyfriend that I lived with, and we were climbing partners, and we broke up and we got back together. And the first thing that we did when we got back together was go climbing. And we were driving to the crag, and I was like, this guy is going to, you know, kill me and make it look like I had an accident. That's what that's the power your climbing partner has, and that's the importance of trust in not just a relationship, but especially in rock climbing. I mean, people K-word other people totally unintentionally, like accidentally and stuff in climbing, and you always have to be on the lookout for, your partner's unsafe behavior, but then when you think that someone could actually intentionally do that and make it look like an accident because they just wanna get rid of you, and you're on a mountain like K2, and no one's gonna ask any questions about what happened. I mean, it's just like such a it's like an existential almost, like horrible thought to have. Carla says, "Any situation putting men close to women seems to result in sexual harassment." Which is, I think, why the conversation about separatism comes up a lot, or just limiting at least our contact with men. It doesn't have to be full separatism, but this is just crazy. And again, it it is the small percentage of men who are kind of harassing so many women that we all have this experience, even if it is, like, literally just a few guys doing it. We know it's not just a few guys, but you know what I'm trying to say. A few months ago, the Mountaineers is an organization I really like. The Mountaineers publishes books. I have a lot of their books. Great publisher of mountain climbing books, lots of female authors, really, really good organization. Um, Mountaineers, an outdoor recreation group in Pacific Northwest, created a sexual harassment and assault prevention advisory committee to address the risk among its 15,000 members. But it's nothing new for women to feel mistreated in the sport. It's the most vulnerable position I can imagine being in, said Allison Levine, the captain of the first American women's expedition to Everest in 2002, who said she experienced verbal abuse and threatening behavior from a guide during that trip. The climbers turned back short of the summit as weather conditions deteriorated. Ms. Levine continued, the thing that was most challenging, the scariest, and produced the most anxiety and fear on that mountain came from a human, not the environment. She didn't return back to the big mountains for another 5 years, went back to Everest in 2010 and reached the summit. There is so much inherent risk in the environment itself, she said. When you add in the risk from interpersonal relationships, that makes it even more frightening. So, a reality of alpine mountaineering and this high altitude, big mountain type climbing um, is that women are physically not as strong as men. And although they are absolutely capable of climbing the biggest objectives and the hardest objectives, they're capable. A lot of men will view them as a liability, I think. Again, I'm not a high altitude um, mountaineer or alpine climber, but I think I would guess that attitude is very persistent. I've read a lot of climbing stuff, and there is just such a sexist, like macho attitudes are very pervasive. Where a no means nothing. This month, hundreds of climbers scaled Everest and other Himalayan peaks. Above 8,000 meters, about 26,000 feet, they enter what is known as the death zone, where there is not enough oxygen to sustain human life for long, and they expose themselves to hazards like frostbite, icefall, crevasses, and high altitude pulmonary edema, HAPE, or cerebral edema, which is HACE. 18 climbers died on Everest during the spring 2023 season, and five have died this year, and three have been reported missing. Damn. Pretty dangerous. Pretty dangerous. Clients pay tens of thousands of dollars to attempt these ascents. Everest expeditions start at around 40,000. I've never heard of it being that cheap. I think I've heard around 130,000, for a summit experience. Can cost six figures for a more luxurious experience and entrust their guides with their lives. And often the guides give their lives to, or the Sherpa do, they're the ones who do a lot of heavy lifting on these climbs. Mr. Purja 40 is one of mountaineering's most recognizable and influential figures. I've never heard of him, like, outside of this article. I think I'm not really up on alpine mountaineering. With more than 2 million followers on Instagram, known as Nims, he's the naturalized citizen of Britain, where he lives with his wife and young daughter. Ugh, classy. But in his native Nepal, he is revered as the kind of climbing superstar the country hasn't seen since Tenzing Norgay completed the first ascent of Mount Everest in 1953 alongside Sir Edmund Hillary. Adrian said, regardless of the vector of danger just from men's, I would be hard pressed to get into an experience that includes a death zone. I agree. I don't like being cold, so that's you know, big reason for me. So here is Mr. Purja, a former soldier and star of mountaineering, is a national hero in his native Nepal. He's got something going on with his nose there. I guess a sunburn probably. Through his guiding company, Elite Exped, Mr. Purja has helped usher in a new era of commercial climbing on the world's tallest peaks and has encouraged women on social media to take part. So often, these male predators, they have one attitude towards women in public, and then their actions towards women can be quite different in private. Carla says, I feel we should just never idolize men in any capacity. It always goes to their head and they become predators. That's probably often the case, right? Yeah. Um, let's take this tin can to go see the Titanic underwater. No, thank you. Yeah, I would like to be safe. He has guided high-profile female clients like Asma Al-Thani, a member of the Qatari royal family, and the Russian model Victoria Banya. Thanks for inspiring me to push my limits. I'm grateful for everything you taught me. A Swiss climber named Christine Vogondi posted on social media last fall with a photo of her and Mr. Purja atop Gasherbrum 1 in Pakistan. Ms. Hinsa, who became a professional climber in 2018, crossed paths with Mr. Purja at base camps in Nepal and Pakistan while on the climbing circuit. They corresponded intermittently about expeditions they were taking, and Mr. Purja invited her to guide for his company. Mr. Perger was often flirtatious in those text messages and in exchange with Dr. Leonardo, according to a review of the messages by the Times. The women sometimes bantered back, and Ms. Hinsa, a former Sports Illustrated swimsuit model, once sent a photo of herself from the magazine. Often, though, the women changed the subject or didn't respond. Okay, so the women sometimes bantered back. Hmm. I think that people will take that as saying, "Well, you wanted it, you liked it," you know? I think the women here will know. Bantering back is the equivalent of that, "Yeah, okay," you know? We are actually conditioned and trained to do that. It's called grooming. It happens to women throughout our whole lives. We're taught that, it's a high should be a high priority in our lives to make a man happy by bantering back. It's not necessarily because they want to. So I think it's very important to recognize that. Ms. Hinsa and Mr. Purja agreed to meet in Kathmandu in March 2023 to discuss working together on an expedition Ms. Hinsa was organizing. Mr. Purja suggested having coffee in his hotel suite to avoid the attention he would get in the lobby. Ms. Hinsa recalled. Given the tenor of some of their earlier text messages, Ms. Hinsa said she sought to draw clear boundaries. She said she texted Mr. Purja on WhatsApp that this was not a booty call and that he replied agreeing that it was not. Ms. Hinsa no longer had his text exchange because Mr. Purge's app was set to make messages in their chat disappear after 7 days. Ooh, what a cool picture. Ms. Hinsa met Mr. Purja at a hotel in Kathmandu, Nepal for what she said was intended to be a business meeting, not a booty call. Kathmandu. Nepal is one of the poorest countries in the world. In Mr. Purge's suite at the Marriott on March 30th, Ms. Hinsa recalled she was frozen and confused as he led her to the bed. She said she felt like she was having an out of body experience as he removed her clothes, even as she continued to say no. She told him she had her period, she said, but he didn't stop. At one point, he touched her vagina, she said. I can't get through to him. He's in this extremely aroused state where a no means nothing, Ms. Hinsa recalled. She said she was afraid to agitate him because of his strength and the training he'd received in Britain's military, including its special forces. She said that Mr. Purja appeared to grow frustrated as she continued to refuse him and that he seemed to lose interest after she physically resisted his removing her bra. She described feeling relieved when he began to do that, hopeful the episode would be soon over. This is crazy. Yeah, I mean, this guy is really strong because he's a climber. Just everything that she describes this, like, if you've had an experience like this really rings very true. You know, feeling like she was having an out of body experience. Just like I'm not here. This isn't happening right now. This is happening to someone else. I'm somewhere else. He's not really doing this. So this is definitely rings true. Mr. Purja then showered, she said, which gave her time to compose herself and get dressed. They left the room and he showed her the store he operates at the Marriott, then asked a driver to take her to her hotel. She said, Mr. Purja behaved as if nothing had happened, she said. Oh God, how disgusting, actually, really. Revolting, agreed. It's really revolting. That's a great word to describe this. That day, Ms. Hinsa texted a friend describing her experience. The Times reviewed the message. Later, she recounted it in person to a friend, Heidi Pananen, who confirmed their conversation. A driver for Mr. Purja, Krishna Bahadur Tabang, said in a written statement provided by Mr. Purja's lawyer that he took Mr. Purja to the Marriott that morning. He said Mr. Purja returned to the car within 20 minutes. Ms. Hinsa recalled being at the hotel with Mr. Purja for close to an hour, and she provided timestamped photos she took that day on her way to meet Mr. Purja and at his store. They corroborated her timeline. Ms. Hinsa did not end up doing business with Mr. Purja's company. Well, I feel like the New York Times really did their due diligence on this. This is such an expose of this guy's crap ass behavior. Like, wow, what a jerk. What a predator. The acting like nothing happened is also calculating it signals to others in the party that things are normal, and she looks unhinged by acting emotional, right? Oh, yes, that is such a great way to state that. Thank you, Existential Gamer. 45 minutes into the stream, it's time for my voice to die. Pretty typical. Widespread problem, little action. Outdoor sports have a unique risk factor for sexual harassment and misconduct, said Gina McClard, an Oregon lawyer specializing in gender based violence prevention. In 2019, she co founded a consultancy called Respect Outside that works with outdoor recreation groups such as mountaineering clubs and guides services on policies, procedures, and training to prevent harassment and discrimination. These activities can entail weeks long expeditions to remote settings where participants live and sleep in close quarters. The culture surrounding outdoor sports, which celebrates pushing boundaries, and glorifies people who pull off rare feats, may also create situations where inappropriate behavior goes unchecked. Um, there's a couple interesting ideas here, like getting out of your comfort zone. That's often used by like cult leaders to get female cult members to do things that they are sexually uncomfortable with. And it's often seen as, get outside of your comfort zone. What's holding you back? Like all these things. And if you create an activity where, pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone becomes normalized, then that behavior where you now can start to sexually take advantage of women also becomes normalized. And it's sort of like, that idea of pushing your boundaries, getting out of your comfort zone, like, and but at the same time, there are situations where that is healthy and that is a good thing, but it can also be like a real coercion type tactic. The adrenaline and the feeling that you and your group are part of a rarefied breed, right? Yeah, it also adds to that sort of cult-like environment. There's also a thing they've done studies where I forget what it's called, but it's not like trauma bonding. It's 'Cause I think that's, like, more like bonding over sharing your past traumas with people. But there's something where, people who go through a stressful experience together are more likely to fall in love. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this, but they would do these studies where they had people, I think, like, walk across a, suspension bridge and then rate people's attractiveness or whatever at the end of the suspension bridge, and they're more in a receptive, uh, state to find people more attractive and to wanna start, like, a relationship even when you've gone through something in this very, like, heightened, scared, almost adrenalized state, and I think it's because, that inner feeling of butterflies or whatever, it really mimics the way it feels when you sort of fall in love with someone or something like that. So, yeah, I don't know. Um, Adrian says that there are all kinds of spaces like this, anything where bonding can happen, exercise, recovery, prayer. Definitely, exactly. They can all create, and maybe some relationships form in those situations that do end up being like really healthy and lifelong bonds and stuff like that, and that they're good. But it also sets up this potential for really unhealthy type stuff. Um, Much of the outdoor industry is still an old boys network, Ms. McClard said in an email. If you do not conform to how things are done, you might find yourself marginalized and iced out of the club. So I know that climbing communities are really small, really insular. Everyone knows everyone. It's like living in a small town where all the neighbors are gossiping about each other. And there are like the cool cliques within the climbing community. And, yeah, you don't want to get ostracized from that. And you will go along to get along if you have to sometimes. Oh, yes, there's a reason why AA says to people, don't get involved with other people in the group. I I have I have actually been to AA, but not on a long-term basis, but I did go to group therapy for a while, and it was the same thing. It was don't contact people outside of group therapy, and it was like, dude, I made some kind of strong bonds with people in group therapy where I was like, I kind of wanna, like, get their number, and find out, like, whatever. Um, but they say don't do it. Also, don't do any therapy amongst yourselves outside of therapy, like, keep everything professional, right? Like these are it's kind of like that expression, "Don't S where you eat," like where you're doing something kind of like important, you know what I mean? You wanna keep those potentially messy relationships out of that environment. Yeah, I think, don't don't S where you eat. If AA is really important to you, you don't wanna mess that up by getting into some messy thing that sort of now, like, taints your experience of that, you know what I mean? And that goes for anything. "Hey, Lily, what's up?" Oh, it's, looking like Yosemite. In February, a climber named Charles Barrett was convicted of 3 counts of sexual abuse for assaulting a woman on a hiking trip to Yosemite National Park. Mr. Barrett, the climber who was convicted of SA this year, is set to be sentenced on Tuesday. How exciting. He was prosecuted in part because of the 2018 Safe Outside survey, according to court filings earlier reported by Outside Magazine. When I did that stream, one of his victims watched my stream and commented on it, and I was like, "Whoa." Like, I always just think I'm doing these streams for 3 people, and I forget that, like, "Oh, it's up on YouTube, anybody can watch it?" Um, because I don't try to be so professional or anything, and then I'm like, "Oh, wow, somebody actually watched my stream, that's crazy." Um, then I'm like, "Maybe I should be more professional, I don't know." The woman he, assaulted answered the survey saying she had been R-worded by a well-known professional California climber on a trip to Yosemite. Another respondent said she had been essayed by the house guest of a professional climber she was visiting. Survey organizers followed up with the women and connected them after they both identified Mr. Barrett as the person who assaulted them. The Yosemite hiker reported Mr. Barrett to authorities in 2020. Mr. Barrett's was a familiar name in California rock climbing. He wrote guidebooks on bouldering in popular areas like Mammoth and Bishop, and he ascended difficult routes with the famous American rock climber Alex Honnold. A 2016 profile in Climbing magazine, later taken down from the website, described Mr. Barrett as a master of the California climbing game. He was living and working in Yosemite at the time of the assault of the female hiker. Mr. Barrett violently R-worded her after inviting her into the woods to watch a meteor shower, prosecutors said, and also assaulted her during a hike in the employee housing area. 3 other women, including the other survey responded, testified at his trial that he had SA'd them. Those incidents happened outside federal jurisdiction, and state prosecutors did not bring charges. Based on her work with groups throughout the industry, Ms. McLeod said that company policies rarely extend beyond physical safety to include psychological or emotional safety of clients and employees. So that is such an important thing, right? I mean, company policies would obviously include physical safety. Um, I worked as an apprentice guide doing like little Boy Scout days and stuff like that. Um, and obviously, physical safety is the top concern of any climbing guide. But I don't know that they even really talk about, yeah, just like they say, do they even talk about physical or psychological or emotional safety of clients and employees? Maybe not. Most smaller outdoor companies don't have in house human resources, she said, and bigger players in the industry have not invested the time or money she believes these issues require. There's no industry wide movement, she said. I feel like we are alone in what we're doing on sexual harassment in the outdoor industry. Making advances at 17,000 feet. Dr. Leonardo, 41, the California physician, met Mr. Purja at a tea house in Nepal in 2021 before she summited Mount Everest with a different company. She later learned that he was organizing a guided ascent of K2 the following summer. Drawn in part by the danger of the climb, she signed up, paying $55,000 for the 2 month trip, which began in June 2022. It's a lot of money. Um, After arriving at K2 Base Camp at 17,000 feet, the team held a puja, a ceremony to pay respect to the mountain and ask for safe passage. She recalled that during the celebration afterwards, she was looking for a trash bag and ran into Mr. Purja, who took her to a storage tent to get one. As she turned Oh god, I feel like I hate even reading this stuff, it's so creepy. As she turned to leave, she said Mr. Purja grabbed her arm, pulled her close, and kissed her. She recalled Mr. Purja then saying, "I will have you." Stunned and unsure of what to do, she said she walked out. Nasty. I just feel like I need to avoid him and keep anything from happening, but I'm afraid to do or say anything about it, Dr. Leonardo recalled thinking. Another climber on the mountain at the time said Dr. Leonardo told him during her trip that she and Mr. Purja had this interaction and that she did not want to be alone with him. The person asked not to be named for fear of professional or personal repercussions. It's so, oh my God, that's your guide that you hired. That's your guide. That's your I it's like I can't even wrap my head around, oh god, it's disgusting. It's so disgusting. The K2 base camp, Dr. Leonardo said her experience with Mr. Purja tainted the achievement of summiting the world's second tallest peak. On another occasion, Dr. Leonardo said Mr. Purja showed up uninvited at her tent. She was in her sleeping bag wearing a shirt and underwear, and he crouched next to her and said he wanted to check on her knee, which she had injured. Mr. Purja reached inside her sleeping bag, which made her panic, so she quickly pulled her leg out. He kissed her, he said, and grabbed her hand and placed it on his crotch, forcing her to feel his erect penis through his pants. She said she felt trapped in her sleeping bag, unable to leave because she wasn't dressed. This article is going all in. This is so intense. Damn, good on the New York Times. According to Dr. Leonardo, Mr. Purja told her he wanted to have sex with her, but had to wait until no one was around and then left. Oh, this is so gnarly. Another time, she said Mr. Purja grabbed her arm while she was walking alone through camp and asked, "When can I mount you?" Hurl, disgusting. What the crap? He suggested they go to her tent, she said, but she made excuses. Dr. Leonardo sent her father, Leon Leonardo, a text during her trip saying that Mr. Purja kept trying to have sex with her. Dude, that's so like, oh my God, texting your dad that. I have a pretty close relationship with my dad, but I'm not sure my dad would be the one I would go to. Like, Oh my god, it's just like, the whole thing is so cringy. This is making me exclaim shock out loud as I listen. I'm like, yeah, I'm like physically cringing. Not okay, she wrote in the message, which was reviewed by the Times. Again, New York Times doing its due diligence here. Two employees of Elite Exped on Dr. Leonardo's K2 expedition, Chandra Badahur Tamang, the head chef, and Ramesh Gurung, a senior guide, said in statements provided by Mr. Purja's lawyer that they provided security for the storage tent because it contained valuable items and that Mr. Purja never went inside it during the expedition. I mean, they work for him, right? Like, they work for him. What are they gonna say? Do they still want a job? Dr. Leonardo said people were often around the tent, but no one was there when she and Mr. Purja briefly went inside. I just find these, like I find these stories to be so credible. Like, this is so easy to believe. Like, there's nothing like that's just like, yeah, I just want to like destroy this guy's reputation for fun or something. Like, because these stories they basically are humiliating to the women who are telling them too. Like, no woman like especially this level of detail. This is just like, goddamn, man. Am I right? I just shoot hashtag believe women. Come on. Another senior guide, Pasang Tendi Sherpa, said in a statement that Mr. Purja was not in any private setting with Dr. Leonardo during the trip. Like, how could he know that, right? Pasang Tendi Sherpa's statements did not explain how he knew that, and he did not respond to interview requests. Mr. Gurung did not agree to an interview. The Times could not reach Chandra Bahadur Tamang. For several months after the trip, Dr. Leonardo had cordial text exchanges with Mr. Purja, partly because she was waiting for reimbursement for some lost gear. She said she didn't see him again. Warning other women. The women who spoke to the Times about Mr. Purja said that they didn't know what recourse they had. Elite Exped is a small company run by Mr. Purja, and because the incidents happened outside of their home countries, the women weren't sure what to do. They did not alert law enforcement or other opportunities or other authorities. And like other countries, okay, you have to know the law of any country that you travel to because there are countries where if a woman is R-worded or abused, it's like her fault, and she's the one who can get in trouble for it, right? So depending on where you travel, you need to know. You need to know before you go what the law is there, what rights you have, what protections you have, and then there are other countries where our word is much taken even much more seriously than in the US. Um, and men will be prosecuted much stronger. So don't travel without knowing those things. I think that might be one lesson we take away from this story because it can happen, right? I mean, it's like listening to the stewardess on the airplane tell you the safety instructions. Like, yeah, it's probably not going to happen, very unlikely, but it could. And wouldn't you want to be prepared and know? And so it's like the same thing, if you're gonna travel, you better know what rights you have or don't have, and realize that if you're gonna be lacking rights, or it's like, say you get R-worded and now it's your fault, or you could go to prison for it, that you have to know that you're taking on that responsibility or burden when you are traveling. Ms. Hinsa said she was telling her story in hopes of making the male dominated sport of mountaineering safer for women. Only with time has she come to understand the effects of her experience. I hadn't realized the scars it had left. She said it made me realize that it's not the only the rock fall or avalanches that are dangerous for a female climber. I think I'm working on a video about this experience I had of being essayed while out running by a stranger. And it's like this experience that I had that just feels so like in my mind, I kind of minimize it. It feels insignificant, but I like worked on it in therapy. And I was just like shocked at how emotional it made me to talk about it and how much it like, these experiences are very serious. Um, but I think as women, it's like no matter the level of abuse or whatever that you suffer, you minimize it to some level, but then it, like, just kind of stays there, and you don't even realize the, like, subtle ways that it affects you even physically, like, for years and years down the line. You know what I mean? Mr. Purge's star has continued to rise. As a face of high altitude climbing, he's worked with major companies like Red Bull and Nike. This past winter released a clothing collection inspired by Mr. Purja. I can't believe I've never heard of this guy. Like I guess I just don't like I am actually surprised though because it's not like I totally don't follow climbing. Like I am a climber myself. So anyways, called 8K Peaks and featured him in a towering Manhattan billboard. In December, he received an honorary doctorate from Loughborough University in England. Outdoor brands, including Griville, Osprey, and Scarpa, have worked with him on co branded products. Crazy. I wear Scarpa shoes. Dr. Leonardo's achievement of summiting K2, she said, was tainted by what she experienced. She hoped that sharing her account will help other women avoid a similar scenario. I can't let it keep happening, Dr. Leonardo said, adding, I don't want another woman to have to go through this. I hate to break it to you, but this is what we're going through all the time. I wish you were the last one. Wouldn't that be great? Johanna Lamola and Badra Sharma contributed reporting. Kitty Bennett contributed research. And this article, I don't know if I said it at the beginning, it was written by Jenny Vrentas and oh, it was a long article. Anna Callaghan. So thank you to those women for this expose. We love a good expose about male predators. Yeah, I hope it's healing too. I hope it's part of the healing process. I do think that talking about it, getting it out, purging it out, can be healing. It can be cathartic. I think sometimes people will shame women and say, "Don't wallow in that. Get past it, move on." Okay, it's like yeah, I actually think it's very important to acknowledge when you have been the victim of something. We don't allow women to do that enough. We really like the idea of being a victim is so shameful. Like being a victim carries this shame and it really shouldn't. Um Adrienne says, I read an article about a man being essayed and it was so bizarre. Nobody doubted him in the article or comments, made me realize how often women are not believed. I think these women's accounts were just like unbelievably credible and totally ring true. Top comment from Tom in Syracuse. I've been on numerous treks in the Khumbu Valley, Nepal, near Everest, and on each trip, female members of our group have received unwanted and often aggressive attention from members of the guide team. I have come to see this as a pervasive problem in the Nepal trekking industry. Please be aware and careful and on guard. If you are considering a visit to this amazing part of the world, it is not just the climbing sector, the broader tourist and trekking sector as well. So again, yes, it's like really sucks. Ugh, she even texted her dad. Right. Existential says most women do get past it. Like, I just push everything that's ever happened to me down because what choice does anyone have? I've been saying talking about them and going to therapy for like 6 weeks or something now. And I started off my therapy because I have food related OCD And it's funny because even since I started therapy, I've just not really been using the word OCD at all, but whatever. But in the therapy, like, my therapist is like, "Well, I wanna get to the root of what caused you to believe, like, food is not safe or, like, the world is not safe." And so I really have been kind of going bringing up all of these traumas that I've experienced and trying to, like, anything that I think might still be, like, impacting me, you know? And it's like, yeah, if you can push stuff down, but then it can have all these kind of unintended effects on your life. Like, oh, I experienced something traumatic. Instead of processing it, talking about it because it's so shameful, I'm just gonna push it down and move on because I gotta live my life. I have to do my job. I have to, like, maintain my relationships with people. I have to do my hobbies. I have to live my life. Um, but then it's gonna, like, eat at you, right? It's almost like a Edgar Allan Poe or something, you know? Like, that kinda thing. Like, yeah, you can stuff all this stuff down. I feel like, yeah, men have traumas too, but not this high volume of day-to-day crap that women go through. I really do believe that, and it's something that ends up, we have to live with. This climbing season has been seen scandal after scandal involving Nirmal Purja. First, it was that he violated helicopter regulations. Then he brought climbers up to Camp 3 on a Lingchen permit. Then he accused someone of cutting ropes near the summit of Everest to prevent his team from summiting, which they did anyways. In each incident, it's been unclear to me exactly what's true and what isn't, but the volume of scandals has painted a portrait of a man who is obsessed with his own status and convinced of his untouchability. Well, this is kind of like a very, climbing, I do think, does draw some people who are somewhat megalomaniacal or whatever. For what it's worth, I've seen large amounts of pushback against his antics in the climbing world. I hope that Hinsa and Leonardo receive the support they deserve from the community. I'm interested to see, maybe go on some climbing forums and stuff and see what people are, how the manner in which they're discussing this stuff. Um, I thought this comment was really interesting because I did say that I really like the Mountaineers, but worth pointing out the Mountaineers cited here for creating a panel and advisory committee to address sexual harassment and assault only did so after a broad campaign by community members who have previously been assaulted on trips by their leaders in the Mountaineers community spoke up publicly. Kudos to the women for their bravery. So that is like, er, 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 very interesting. Really interesting. Yeah, again, I'm not really super interested personally in mountain climbing, but I have definitely read a ton of books about high altitude mountaineering. That's actually, I got into reading books about Everest and Himalayas like in my early 20s, probably like 5 years before I ever touched a rock. So yeah, it's a fascinating world. It's definitely a real seriously macho type world, even going back to its whole history, going back to the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. All right. Hello. All right. So that was a great article. I feel like we've had some articles in the New York Times that were a little like, kind of felt like kind of superficial or something, that damn, that went in, it went deep, and they did not hold back. And I am just like, New York Times was like, I'm about to end this man's whole career, right? Like they just, that was an expose. They have to know. That's like one they had to run by the legal team, you know? Mountain survival stories are among my favorite kinds of stories. Agreed. I love that kind of stuff. I would never go to a mountain like Everest. I think humans are not meant to be there. I totally agree. It didn't have that written by AI flavor. I totally agree with that too. That was very intense. I was like, I skimmed that a little bit, but I missed all that really salacious stuff. Damn. I don't think strength, or macho when you pester a woman, it's pathetic. Oh, totally agree with that. Lisa in glasses today because I didn't have the energy to put on contact lenses, so that's what you get. Ah, oh, caves is I can't even I can't even start to think about it. It is so it's like viscerally I get a, like, whole body feeling when I think about people, like, caving. Oh god, awful. Never, never. Caving freaks me out. Yeah, oh my god. So what else? Um, oh, it's 32 people here. Please hit the like button. Yeah, I'm working on a video. I wrote an essay about this experience I had. I was out running and this guy, a stranger, hit me and it was like horrifying. And I'm just like, if I like put this video out, are people gonna like laugh at me? That's kind of what the essay's about. The essay's about that every time I've told a story, I expected people to just think it's hilarious and laugh, and no one has ever had that reaction. They're always, like, horrified. And the other thing is like, "Oh, wow, well, as far as essay goes, it's really not that bad," you know? Um, a guy drove at me on a motorcycle going about 30 miles an hour and hit me on the butt with his hand. And, it was so intense, I thought I had been hit by a car. And whenever I've told that story, I'm like, "Oh, the person I'm telling this to is gonna find this, like, hilarious," right? Like, "Somebody just hit me on the butt," or whatever. But, I mean, it was so painful and humiliating and, like, the impact was so hard, I literally thought I had been hit by a car, um, and I don't know why I still believe that people will find it funny and just like a joke or they'll laugh at me, you know? And it's just something like I talked about it in therapy and I still am trying to process this, something that, like, happened 10 years ago, and I'm just always surprised by, people's reactions that they're like, "Wow, that's really awful," because I just expect them to think it's funny or something, and I even wrote in the essay that I think it's like a protective mechanism for me to believe that this incident was like a joke between this guy and I, that he and I were in on it together. Um, and I wonder if other women have had that experience with, as a protective mechanism when they've been assaulted to believe that they were somehow willing in their experience. And of course, it makes more sense to have that if say you were assaulted, it started off that you were voluntarily like kissing a guy or something and it turned into an assault, to believe that, oh, but I wanted it on some level, But this was literally someone came up from me behind, assaulted me, battered me, and then drove off, probably laughing to himself, but, I mean, could have easily killed me because he drove at me on a motorcycle going, like, 30 miles an hour about. Um, if I had stepped, one into the road or whatever, like, he could have just run me over and I would be dead, and it's, like, totally horrifying to think about that, but in my mind, I'm like, I should find this funny. I should be laughing at myself. I should be laughing at the situation. Um, and then I'm always, like, surprised that people don't have that reaction also. Yeah. I'm really sorry to hear this. I'm not I'm not laughing at you. I laugh when I relate to something, you know? I don't know if anyone else has that experience too, but when someone says something, like, very relatable, that tends to be my body's reaction is to, even if it's something horrible, but yeah, I'll mention something from home as if it was normal or funny, and people react like, "What?" Yes. Totally, nobody wants to be a victim. Yeah, I yeah, it's this thing where, like, I brought it up in therapy, and I was like, "I wanna tell you about this experience because I feel that I have had PTSD 4 times in my life." Um And I think that's one of them because I would define PTSD as when you have a physical reaction in the future to something that happened in the past. So if you can kind of relive those, like, an intense emotion or intense, physical reaction by just, like, imagining something that happened. And I definitely had that. And also it really changed. I think someone commented that, yeah, Lily said, "It would totally change how you look at road running by yourself," and it did, and for a long time after that, anytime a car would be coming up behind me, I would get, like, very nervous. So I never had that before. So there you go. Hey, Lee. It's like, "Everybody here, a ballistic, you should be a mod too." I can't do it from I can't do it from this screen, though. And I feel like everyone Adrian could be a mod too, everyone could be mods. Um, Existential said, "I've had a lot of protective measures like that. I think of myself as never having been assaulted, but that drunky McGrabby hands experience was assault, even though I didn't think of it that way." And that's like, yeah, did you feel like, "Oh, well, you agreed to sleep in bed with that guy?" And Joe, it's like, yeah, anyone touching you uninvited is assault. Uninvited and unwanted. I mean, sometimes you don't give the person an explicit invitation, but yeah, it is hard to think about these things. I think it's cathartic to think about them. Going back to the beginning, we were talking about the man versus bear. And I said, what I don't want to come out of that conversation is women to be afraid and then limit their experiences based on that. Because I really feel that that's also very bad to live your life um, hiding from the world because this potential is out there. I don't think that's good. And I hope that's not what women take away from those conversations. Ooh, Lily says, "At my volunteer position, I was training this other guy and I got nervous standing alone with him in the wet room to clean out some shorts. It was fine, but I don't know. I felt my fight or flight activate. I feel it a lot more now. Ever since the Me Too era, like, definitely situations where I would have never thought twice about encountering a man. I look at men very differently now. Um, we internalize the culture's gaslighting of us and projection. We are walking sex objects, right? So hard to claim our sovereignty when we're supposed to be objects. And you know, in the aftermath of rethinking about this experience that I had, I, I mentioned this on Peaceful Island that, I look at this fitness influencer content that is so ass centric, like, we refer to them as assfluencers as a joke, but really, like, it's so crazy, and then I'm like, it makes me so angry at the women who like, men are gonna think that way anyways, right? That we're objects, but then there are women who are complicit in furthering this narrative that we just exist as jokes and that our butts are available for men to grab because it's funny and we don't, that's our purpose. And if they want to do it, they're entitled to do it. And we can't say anything about it. And I became very angry at those women for making not creating this situation, but, definitely furthering it. I mean, that some of that content is, like, clownish, like, it's so clownish, and it's like, I don't wanna be seen as a clown, I don't wanna be seen as just, like, a butt walking around, and that's my purpose is of just to be a butt for men to grab. And yet there are women who are, like, literally that's their whole brand. Crazy. Their whole brand is to sell this idea that a woman's just a walking butt. Excuse me, like, I have a butt. I'm much more than that. Ballistic says, "About the bear, I just feel that animals in general are scared of us and want us to leave them alone, so if you act according, they'll probably go away," and that's overwhelmingly true for, black bears. Other types of bears, are more aggressive or potentially grizzly bears, brown bears, they potentially could be more aggressive, not necessarily. People have a lot of encounters with grizzly bears that end totally peacefully. And as they say, if it's black, fight back. If it's brown, lie down. And if it's white, say goodnight. Because I don't think you're getting out of a polar bear encounter. If it's a man or a polar bear, I'm taking the man 10 times out of 10. I just wanna be a human being. And, like, I say that as someone who, like, I love bodies for the aesthetics and stuff, like, I'm really into bodies. I know I said that, someone was like, "Wow, it's really weird." But, I love to look at an aesthetic fit body, love it, I love that. But it should be, like, part of a context of, like, you are actually a whole person, you know? Find that much more appealing to look at someone who's, like, an aesthetic fit body that's like a whole person, rather than, like, you're literally just a caricature of a person, all you are is a butt. I mean, I'm not trying to hate on butts, but, like, I just that culture, because I don't know that any other body part for women in my lifetime, maybe breasts. When I was growing up, it was like breast culture was just way like Baywatch and stuff. I don't know, Victoria's Secret. That was the focus. I don't think you'd ever even like see a butt, like in pop culture or whatever. Certainly not the way it is now. Anyways, thanks, Lily. I'm not weird. Oh, I want to talk about something. So Lily has inspired me to wanna do a triathlon later this summer, so I think I'm going to try to, like, orient my life around that for the next, like, couple of months. I wanted to do a triathlon the last 2 summers, and I have had this foot injury, that I've been dealing with for, like, forever, and, yeah, Lily's true influencer moment here. Um but my foot's, like, pretty good right now. I don't wanna jinx myself. I feel like if I sign up for a triathlon and I buy a wetsuit and stuff, I will be jinxing myself. But, I I think I will be able to make it running for the next couple months. I'm gonna try riding my bike today, so that would be exciting. So I haven't ridden my bike in a while, but yeah. Um, when is it hip dip's turn? Oh, my my StreamYard is lagging severely. I have hip dips. I think it's like saddlebags or something, whatever. That's by low self-esteem moment of the stream, but I don't know. I love bodybuilding and I love the idea of working on your physique. I love that hashtag aesthetic physique. That's like my vibe. Um, how do I square that with my feminism? I don't really care. And yeah, I love arms too, dude. I really want this there's a vein here. I don't have it, but it's called a cephalic vein. Not It's kind of unusual in women because you have to be quite lean also. I'm pretty lean, but I don't really have a ton of muscle. Um, literally have my weights right here. Well, my friends, we had a good crowd today. There's nothing anti-feminist about appreciating healthy bodies and wanting one yourself. That's my spicy take. I actually think um, fitness is feminist praxis. I think it's a feminist imperative for women to exercise and get in shape and not for aesthetic purposes. That's as much as I'm personally Lisa's into aesthetics, that's it's not has nothing to do with feminism. But I do think pursuing a fit, healthy lifestyle should be every feminist's first goal. I really do. I know we talk about, oh, feminism shouldn't have to take on all these other issues. Well, I do think that a woman's personal self care, of which fitness and exercise should be front and center, is should be the very top, the very the very top of uh, your feminist praxis. What do I think about healthy at every size? I think that there are like positives to it. I think there are people who take it to a like ridiculous extreme, but I think there's definitely positives to it. Um, Useless says, Lisa, you remember last year I'd never run. Now I run 5K every other day and I love it. I love that for you. There you go. Like it is totally life changing. That's the thing. That's the thing I want women to experience because there's just so many amazing things on the other side of taking up an exercise routine. Really, truly. Um, I okay, so this is where I came from. I have a couple videos about this. Existential says, "I hate that being anti-fitness is seen as sticking it to the patriarchy. This is such an issue for me. What's feminist about women being unhealthy? Healthy? There's a difference between health and beauty." And feminism was the reason I stopped exercising and I was sedentary for like 3 years was because I thought that that was feminist praxis. I really thought I'm sticking it to the man by becoming like weak. I mean, it's like it was so warped because it's literally like they want you weak and unable to like do stuff, you know? But in my mind, I was like, oh, well, fitness is the same thing as being sexualized. And so I can't do fitness and be a feminist at the same time. Um, and yeah, like this is I feel this comment very, very much. Yeah. It is definitely a thing. I think that there are a lot of women who reject fitness or who, I don't wanna get into, like, weight or anything, but, there it's seen as, like, conforming to patriarchy if you are thin, like, no matter what your body type is. So it's seen as essentially being anti-feminist to be thin. That is, like, extraordinarily spicy take, but I've, like, firsthand experienced those ideas. Um And you know what's funny is I do think that conservatives are like overrepresented in a lot of sports and stuff, which is like weird. And I know we were talking about triathlon. There's like triathlon's very conservative politically. Like you'll find an overrepresentation of conservatives in triathlon. You'll find an overrepresentative of extreme liberals in climbing and rock climbing. But, yeah, like, triathlon's also a lot of ex-military people do it too, so, that tends to be more conservative that way. Ballistic says, "Slightly related, I've been watching My 600 Pound Life," I've seen it, "and so many women on that show have been abused. I wonder if it's some kind of protective mechanism for them." Yeah, well, I think that binge eating and stuff is very soothing for some people, so there's, like, that aspect of it too, but yeah, it's like putting your body into a state that is, like, you know, seems not sexualized, but then it's like, it doesn't matter. Whatever size you are, you will be sexualized by somebody, right? I don't go to the gym to be pretty like boy, I go to gym to fight bears. Sloan says, "I was always the sporty girl, and a lot of girls are told they cannot excel in sports. Often I was the only girl in some sport activities." Yeah, yeah. Conservatives aren't shamed by their communities for being traitors for pursuing fitness. Again, that's how I felt. I have a whole video about this, about why I didn't, engage with fitness for so long, and it was because of feminism. It's, like, one of the things that I feel like I can critique about feminism as I experienced it, was this idea that you can't be a feminist and exercise, like, which is wild, and I now that I see things just like, I don't know, it took exercising again for me to, like, be like, "Wow, I can't believe I thought that way." Like, I bought into that, um, and, even posting myself and my physique and stuff on YouTube, it's like, I was like, "Damn, am I, like, gonna offend people with this?" Like, I probably have. I probably lost, like, feminist subscribers for doing that, but I don't feel that I'm sexualizing myself, um, and I think, like, women know when you're doing that, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I would know myself if I was doing that, and I don't feel that I am. Um, I like to show off my body in a way that's more, like, objective or something, that's just like, "This is my fitness, like, these are my muscles," you know? And that kinda stuff, and do it in a non-sexual way, or what I feel is like, again, like, this someone could sexualize this, right? Like, there's obviously, I'm not intentionally, like, that's really on them, you know what I mean? Yeah, this is how I feel too. I really it's the male gaze is just, like, not my vibe, I don't think. Yes, no media literacy, right? Well, it comes down to that idea, right, that, like, I just think there is a difference, like, even, like, Lily always posts, like, Lily's been and sending me videos of, like, triathlete women and, like, rock climbers and that kinda stuff, and it's like, the yeah, there are men who would sexualize that, right? But that doesn't mean they're, like, doing their sport for the male gaze. I mean, there's just, like, such a difference, and also, I actually would want to be producing fitness, feminist kind of content that's not directed towards the male gaze, because so much of just look at YouTube Shorts, go like hashtag yoga, see the top 10 videos that come up, and see what you find. It's not pretty. Let's just put it that way. Like, so I think the more women who could be posting non-male gazy fitness content, the better. That's how I feel about it. It's like, I wanna look at that stuff. There's so little of it out there, you know? Dehumanizing. This is a really good point. Right, so the stuff that I'm posting, I'm trying to make it, very empowering. Basically, it's me, like, rock climbing and stuff, and hopefully progressing and those kinds of things, and I'm a human as I do it, versus this assfluencer content that's like literally you're not a human, you don't have a name, you don't even have a face, you don't have a personality, you don't have thoughts, you're just a butt. You literally exist to be a butt for men to like post heart emojis, you know? That's the and not only are you a butt, but every woman is just a butt. Like, that's what that content, it just kills me. There's a subreddit called r/Jim Snark, and it's all they post, and, it's other women, like, being like, "I hate this," and, you know, I'm not super into Snark. I don't, like, comment there, I don't post there, I read it, but, like, to an extent, those are my people because they get like, this stuff is it's really it's part of this broader porn culture that is just really devaluing women. It's causing I really do believe this is one of the things that has caused a widespread devaluation of females in our society is the pornification of like every kind of media content, which women absolutely contribute to, you know? Sigh. It's interesting. Sloan says they dehumanize and sexualize women, but at the same time they degrade them. But it's not really but at the same time. It's like and at the same time, you know? Oh, they degrade them for the sexualization they cause. Yeah. Porn is the center. Porn is a huge, 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 massive problem. It is absolutely a massive problem. Speaking of talking to dads about uncomfortable subjects, but I was having this conversation with my dad yesterday about like this next generation of men growing up. I was saying, younger men like actually it's you it oh the article okay, let me organize my thoughts before I open my mouth. Um I originally was going to read an article today by Nicholas Kristof before I saw this published today. Nicholas Kristof had an article in the last day or two in the Times about how young men are more conservative now than older men. It's like the first time in history that's happened. That young men are more conservative, young women are becoming more politically liberal, and young men are becoming politically more conservative. And I was thinking about how Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam reacted to, I think his name's Harrison Butker's speech, misogynistic graduation speech. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Cause like Gen X men are like way more into feminism or whatever. They're way more progressive, I think, than men now. And then I was saying to my dad, like, dude, these little boys are watching pornography at like 9 years old. I don't think my dad has like ever seen pornography either, by the way. I'm pretty sure he hasn't. But so I don't even know if he can even imagine what these kids are watching. But you know, these little boys are learning that like this is what women exist for them to do, these things to them. And it's like, it's terrifying that those are the leaders of our future, It's like because it's happening to them at an age that's so they can't even process what they're seeing, but it's like their earliest impressions of women now are to are just objects of abuse, not even sex objects, just objects of violence and just vile stuff. So, filmed grape, totally. Like Lily says, when you regularly consume content that shows half the population being R-worded and brutalized, are you going to respect them? No, probably not. Totally. I heard from a friend that his daughter and all of her high school friends aren't dating at all because boys are so messed up now. It was odd to grow up with these guys and be their friend at one point in elementary school, and then this big shift happened. Mhm. The porn that they're seeing isn't what boys of my age were seeing. Yeah, I think previous generations, it was like the Victoria's Secret catalog or like, whatever. It's like a Playboy. Yes. Like still images of just a woman, it I okay, not a feminist take at all. I would say relatively less. Well, no, this is a feminist take. It's relatively less objectifying in a sense. I mean, it's still a woman's naked body to be used for one purpose. It's still dehumanizing. Like even a Playboy. I know, because liberal feminists would make the argument that it's actually glorifying like a woman's form or something. And here I am talking about I love aesthetic bodies. Well, isn't this just like an extension of that idea of loving an aesthetic body? Well, maybe. If that's all it ever was, that was like the terminal expression of porn was like a magazine that's quaint. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't at the time though, I will say that, those that stuff at the time still was shocking, right? Like, it wasn't quaint at the time, it's quaint now. It's like an oil painting of a naked woman, you know what I mean? At the time, like a Egon Schiele, like, that his paintings were pretty shocking, he painted prostitutes and stuff. Um, Now we would see that as quaint. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you could make the argument that some like old master like Renaissance painting of a naked woman is like a celebration of the female form, and you could also make an argument that an old master painting of a naked woman is degrading and dehumanizing. Lee says Playboy objectified women. Modern porn encourages hate against women. I agree. I think they're both bad, but like the modern pornography is on such a different level. Objectification is bad in any way. Even if it's just like you're like, I love looking at this woman, I want to put her on a pedestal or whatever. Um she's like, I'm just trying to think of the way men interact with porn, like that they're thinking like, oh, she's beautiful, she's a goddess or something. I would treat her very well. I don't know, like that's like the optimistic way. And I guess that's like best case scenario of how a man interacts with porn. But then like, you know, I think the reality is much closer to a worst case scenario, which is like they just see it as like, I saw that, now I wanna hurt the women in my own life. You know what I mean? Porn encourages violence against women, choking, slapping, etcetera, yeah. Um, for real. Interesting conversation, yeah. Objectification is also violent. Uh, yeah, totally agree. You guys, yeah, mhm. Um Yes, some of these comments are pretty spicy. I don't even wanna put them on screen, but like what Lee says, yeah, like totally agree. Yeah, this is a different vibe of, yeah, truly some of porn is depicting a woman, crying or something like that, like, is it's so out of the realm of sexy goddess worship, like, it's it's really yeah, yep. Yup. Well, we're far past the point of demonetization, I guess, on this stream. So many people who are trying to reckon with porn are reckoning with the porn of Gen X millennials, which is such a pale shadow of what those who are younger have as their experience. I haven't like I I just hear about stuff. I haven't seen any of this stuff firsthand, and I really don't have an interest in it, but I hear all about it. Ah, feminism. I thought people weren't interested in talking about feminism anymore. I guess I was wrong. So, what does everyone have going on this weekend? I think we might be around. On Sunday, I would like to play um, Life is Strange Before the Storm. It's a game about two girls being girls, storytelling game. I've only played like the first, I don't know, 40 minutes of it or something. So that would be kind of fun, I think, to play on stream. Oh, I want to talk about your Walking Dead experience. Did you play it? Did you watch the show? I had a very disturbing experience watching or playing Walking Dead. Spoiler alert. Um, the second chapter of the game, I guess it's like the second chapter, second scene, you go to this farm where it's like, "Oh, this is gonna be," it's gonna be awful because they made. Oh, yeah, okay. So this is I stopped after this, but the cannibals, they were cannibals, they were eating people, they cut this guy's legs off, the guy's still alive, they're eating his legs, it's, like, so horrifying. I, like, couldn't go I was, like, thinking about it when I was going to sleep, that kind of feeling, like, I was just, like I was just viscerally, like, disturbed by it. The idea of cannibalism is, like, very I mean, obviously, like, super horrifying. Um Oh, the ending is rough. I don't think I'm gonna play it anymore. I think I spent like $25 on it too, but I don't think I can play it anymore. I loved so many things about it. I love the artwork, the the writing is awesome, the characters are so well developed. I really like the character of Lee, and Clementine. Like, I like the characters, but that it was so, so horrifying. So, that was and I thought maybe we'll even stream it. I just yeah, and I've played, like, zombie games. Oh, Adrian cried during the last scene, it's beautiful. Um, oh, just like freaking, you know, uh, well, I don't know if that was a spoiler, maybe it wasn't, but yeah, anyways, um, Existential is getting an oil change. It's your birthday on the 2nd. Does that make you what sign is that? Not Cancer. What's in between what is it, Taurus and Cancer? What's in between? Gemini. Oh, I think Trump is a Gemini too. What do you guys think about, 34 counts of guilty? Adrian's going to Houston for 10 days for work. That sounds like, hot. Houston's very humid. Gemini's twin. Well, that's cool. Happy birthday, existential gamer. Lee will be canvassing this weekend, skipping the gym. Well, that's kind of a workout in and of itself. Getting out and about. I'm gonna try to ride my bike today. Ballistic was banned from a fantasy hair color Facebook group because she said astrology is not a science. Well, that's also what Carl Sagan said. Houston is basically a concrete line bayou. I just read a book about Mississippi for work, and it kinda made me wanna go to Mississippi even though Mississippi kinda scares me because of scary white people. Bye, strawberry. We're ending soon too. I'm gonna close it up at 2 hours. I can't believe I streamed for this long. I was like, "Let me do an hour." Uh, um, 45 is the new 30? I hope so. Ah, I feel good. I was, like, so irritable and irritated for the last, like, 2 days, and I was like, "Sometimes when I stream, it relaxes me." And I feel that. I feel probably if you watch the beginning of the stream and compare it to right now, I probably seem more relaxed. I was pretty, like, hyper when we started off, but yeah, I just get to this, uh, yeah, I was, like, feeling like all these little things were going wrong, but I wasn't able to, like, shrug them off. I was just getting so irritated by every little thing. I would really appreciate it if you guys liked the stream. Such a simple thing that makes such a big difference in my life. Liking the stream. Another thing you can do is when the stream is over to please comment on it. Comment anything. Just comment, "Hey, what's up?" Comment, Happy Friday. Love the Friday stream. Cool video." Um, because I appreciate that. Thank you for the New York Times for publishing an amazing article. I was so excited to read that with you guys, even though it's devastating subject matter. I love it. I love when they call out men. Do more of that, please. Oh, we're fading fast here. I don't have anything else to talk about, so I guess I'll just say bye. Have a great weekend. I'm gonna post a video soon. Like I said, I wrote an essay. I just need to film some footage of me running to put with it. Yawning! Oh. How do you feel about problematic storylines in your video games? I know you love cannibalism after watching Last of Us with you. Oh yeah, that was cannibalism in that game too. Just like giraffes. Yeah. Problematic. I just hate feeling uncomfortable, you know? I don't play video games to feel miserable. Ellie or Clementine? Dude, I'm picking Clementine. Have a good weekend. Lisa needs a nap. Lisa needs to rest her voice. My vocal cords are always feel, like, horrible after these streams. I have weak vocal cords. Okay, I'm just like, blah, 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 blah. Have a great weekend, everybody. Please, I'm gonna end the stream right now. Just hit refresh, come back, leave a comment. It can be anything. Be creative. Say whether you like Ellie or Clementine better. Um, say say anything. Say anything. Okay, anyways, whatever. Bye, guys.